Hey everybody, it's Greg LaBeouf and I want to welcome you to Awaken the Protector Within. Listen, I'm going to share a concept with you that is really powerful today, and we are new at our podcast. This will be episode, I believe, number 9, so we are still finding our voice. We are still finding our crowd, and that's why I wanted to do this particular episode today while we are young, while we are fresh, while we are just finding our audience, because I want to help you understand and determine whether or not you should subscribe and follow us. I want to make sure that we are on the same page. You see, I am not looking to serve everybody. This podcast is not for everybody. This podcast is for a very select and a very specific few. And I want you to find this. I want my voice and my message to reach you specifically. Why? Because I believe that what is contained within the episodes of this podcast, our message, what is contained within our message, what is my passion, what is my purpose, what is in my soul, what is my reason for being on this planet, the thing that I want to share with you, I believe that if we are on the same page, that if I find you and you find me, together we can change each other's lives, we can make it better, and we can change the world in our own small way. So today's episode is about something that I call separating the crowd. So the big question was this: what do good people do when a society's laws and institutions fail to keep them safe from aggression and violence? How do you get through a growing number of angry, hateful, aggressive people and still remain physically, mentally, and emotionally strong and positive? That was the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name is Greg LaBeouf, and welcome to Awaken the Protector Within. Okay, so listen here, let's jump into this. Separating the crowd. How do we separate the crowd? We separate the crowd by me knowing specifically who I'm looking for. And the more specific I am, the more confident and certain I am with who I am looking for, the more that my message is dialed into those particular people, the more likely that you are going to hear that. It is going to resonate with you. You will know right away whether this is for you or this is not for you. And either way, it's okay. But separating the crowd is about this. It's about having a specific reason. See, let me answer a question for you. And the question would be this: why should you follow me? Why should you listen to me? Why should you do business with me? Why should you come train with me? Why should you consume the knowledge and information and our mission statement and our passion that we are so dedicated to putting out to people? Why should you do business with me over anybody else in our industry? And I'm going to answer that. You see, one, I don't believe that there is a whole lot of other people in our industry. Now, from the outside in, most people look at us and say, oh, you're teaching people self-defense skills. Wrong. I'm not teaching people self-defense skills. Oh, you're teaching people how to fight. No, I'm not teaching people how to fight. I'm not teaching people how to fight. I'm not teaching people how to defend themselves. That is a gross understatement. There's taekwondos and MMA gyms and sport gyms and judo gyms and all kinds of gyms out there and all kinds of martial arts centers and all kinds of training centers that they do that. You can go to Krav Maga studios and learn to defend yourself and stuff. I'm not doing that at all. So what am I doing? Let me answer the question. Here's why you should do business with me over everybody else. Here's why you should listen to this podcast over everybody else. Because the only thing I actually give two shits about is helping people end their pain and suffering that is the result of them having dealt with aggression and violence and conflict and bullying and tormenting. That's what I care about. I care about ending pain and suffering way more than I care about teaching you how to fight or teaching you how to defend yourself. Now let's break this down for just a second. You see, I've had people over the years, for 25 years I've been doing this. I was very blessed. I got to work with the hand-to-hand combat instructors for the U.S. Navy SEAL teams. I've got to work with Dan Inosanto, who was Bruce Lee's protege. These are my mentors, Ron Beliki, his son-in-law, who's one of my instructors. These are gentlemen that I'm certified under. These are gentlemen who I use their physical skills and tactics and strategies. I've gotten to work with law enforcement and military. I've gotten to do shoot wrestling with Yuri Nakamura and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with the Gracies. And, it's like, if you looked at my history and you looked at me, you would say you are a martial artist, my friend. You have trained with some of the best martial artists in the world. I spent over 12 or 13 years pretty much straight down in California, training with these individuals, studying with them, living with them, eating with them, talking with them, growing with them. These are my mentors. And you would say that you, my friend, are a martial artist. You are certified in that. I'd say I'm not a martial artist. That's not how I see myself. Some of my instructors, some of my friends, people that the people that I've built relationships with over the years, they're martial artists. They're dedicated to studying the art. They know the arts inside and out. They know the terminology. They know the history of it. They know the lineage of it. I'm around and I have friends and I have trained with fighters, professional fighters, fighters that have fought overseas in Japan, fighters that have fought in professional events like UFCs, and fighters that have fought in local events and won Golden Gloves and, won belts and held titles and fought and trained in Thailand and, they fight in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournaments all over the world and stuff like that. These are people that I call friends. These are people that I've sweated with, that I've trained with, that I've moved with, that I've learned from, that I've shared information with. So you'd say, well, then you're a fighter. If you're not a martial artist and you reject the title of martial artist, then you're a fighter. But I'm not a fighter. I don't make my living. I don't train to get into a ring. I don't make my living and worry about my one-loss record. I don't worry about how I'm going to get the road to getting the title or the belt. I'm not a fighter and I'm not a martial artist. And a matter of fact, what I do in my business, I absolutely avoid at all costs. I will not train martial artists. And I will not train fighters because that's not what I'm doing and that's not what I'm about. See, where I came from, what I'm about, is I was the victim of a violent crime. See, I was taking kickboxing. I'd done martial arts since I was a kid, and I was taking kickboxing, and I was training. I was a sparring partner for two gentlemen. One was ranked 7th in the world, and the other was an up-and-comer and who went on to win, multiple titles in kickboxing, in, boxing, and, now he does MMAs, I was around fighters. I was training. I was a martial artist as a kid. You see, I don't even want to disrespect them because I was training with them as they were training to become fighters, but they were the fighters. They wanted it. They wanted the titles. They wanted the belts. They wanted to get in the ring and compete. They cared. They cared about how they were going to get the title shot. They cared about who they were fighting next. They cared about the preparation to get into that ring. They cared about all of that stuff. I loved the training. But all I ever cared about was I wanted to understand how to protect myself. Why? Because I lacked confidence. I was uncertain and unsure, and I was scared. I hated aggression. I hated confrontation. And yet everywhere I looked, I thought that everybody else was so good at it, and I thought it was just me. So I was training in martial arts because I thought becoming a martial artist would change it. I thought the fear would go away the second I became a martial artist, the second I knew kicks and punches and katas and weapon drills and all that type of stuff, but it didn't. So then I thought, well, you know what? It's not real enough. I need something different. So then I went out and I looked around and all I could see was the combative sports. And I thought, no, those guys are tough. Those guys are getting in the ring and they're kicking the hell out of each other, man. They're fighting full contact. So I thought, man, that's the secret. So if I become a fighter, then that fear is going to disappear. So I trained them. Now here's the thing. They kept telling me, man, like you're doing all the training, you're doing all the rounds of sparring, you're doing the conditioning, you're doing the focus pad work, the heavy bag work. You're here every day. It was 7 days a week with these guys. These guys were professionals. They had a work ethic that, of a professional athlete. It was 6-7 days a week. There was no breaks. I don't care. I remember I was injured a lot. They were whooping the hell out of me, man. Many times after training, I went from training to hospital. I had to get injections to open up my legs. They were thigh kicking me so hard that my ankles would swell shut. And just like I became like, I knew, the nurses knew me. They're going to have to give me muscle relaxants to get my legs to open up so blood would return back to my feet. I mean, this was a hard grind, but I was not a fighter. I was a kid who was scared of confrontation, scared of aggression. They were fighters. They were training to do something, to get somewhere, to be something. For me, all I cared was I was trying to train to get rid of the fear. That's all I cared about. And they kept saying, like, why don't you want to compete? Why don't you want to compete? And I did a couple, but I was never into that. That was not my drive because I wasn't a fighter. Because I didn't understand all this at the time. But here's the thing. The fear didn't go away. Me training to be a fighter didn't go away. So me training to be a martial artist, that didn't do nothing. It didn't change it. I was still scared. Me training to be a fighter, still didn't. The thing is, my skills grew. I'm not a fighter and I'm not a martial artist, but I'll tell you one thing. When I've been around world-class martial artists and I've been around world-class fighters, I've got skills that I can do either. I'm proficient. I've worked my ass off to get good at my skill sets. But the thing was, I was still scared. Still doesn't make me a martial artist. It still doesn't make me a fighter. So what I'm getting at is this. You see, it was at that point that I was training with the fighters to try to get rid of the fear. Then I was actually in a fight. I was assaulted. Not a fight in the ring, I was assaulted. So here's this thing, this scared kid that's trying to figure out that if I train, if I become a martial artist, I become a fighter, the fear is going to disappear. But it didn't, and then I found myself in the situation that I dreaded the most. I found myself in an assault. It started with 3 guys, and by the end of it, it was 8, 10, 12 guys. Just almost killed me. But you've probably heard that story. I've shared it a number of different times, a number of different places. But it almost killed me. But here's the thing. After that, I realized again too, man, like it hadn't worked. I was just as scared. Only difference is now they broke me mentally and emotionally. So now I was a victim. So I wasn't a martial artist. I wasn't a fighter. I wasn't a fighter who lost a fight. I wasn't a fighter who got beat. I was a scared kid who was trying to figure out how to get rid of the fear, but I was going through it the wrong way. I was trying to become a martial artist, thinking a martial artist would get rid of the fear. I was trying to become a fighter, thinking fighting would get rid of the fear. None of it got rid of fear. Then all of a sudden I found myself in an assault, and guess what? Now I found out I got to be something. It wasn't a martial artist, a fighter. I got to be a victim. I remember clearly at the end of it being like, nobody told me it was going to be this way, man. Nobody. None of the areas I went into, none of them had even an ounce of reality to them. Wasn't even close. And yet those guys that brutalized me, they punched me, they kicked me, they bottled me, they jumped on me, they booted me. You know, they gang assaulted me. They all jumped on me at the same time and punted my head and beat the hell out of me. So you say, well, that's fighting, man. That's martial arts. Martial arts has kicks. Martial art has punches. Fighters get in there and they fight and they punch and they kick. Oh, and nowadays they do ground and pound. They'll take you to the ground just like what happened to you. Wrong. Bullshit. That's not just like what happened to me. There's no pre-conflict. There's no emotion. There's no physiology involved in that the same way. It's a completely different thing. So here's the thing. How do we separate the crowd? You know what I care about? I don't care about teaching you how to fight. I don't care about teaching you how to become a martial artist. I care only about teaching you how to end the pain and suffering, the fear, the stress, the anxiety that comes with the fear and all the stuff from aggression and violence. That's what I care about. There's suffering in that. That's what I was. If I could have had somebody that could have shown me how to end that, that's what I was really looking for. So I don't train martial artists. When I get people that come to me and they start talking about it and what their love is their love is for the art. Oh, I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Do you guys do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Yes, we do some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but now I don't want to train with you. Why? You guys do Filipino martial arts? Yes, we do Filipino martial arts, but now that I know that you're into it, I don't want to train with you. Why? Because you're not who I'm looking for. Because there are people out there that do Filipino martial arts that are Filipino. And there's people out there that aren't Filipino that have studied Filipino martial arts. They dedicated their life to the Filipino martial arts. And they are perpetuating the Filipino martial arts. Go train with them. You will get what you want. You will be rewarded. They will be rewarded. You are like-minded. I get people that come in and say, well, listen, I'm looking for something that's real and something that's this because, you know, I watch MMA and I want this and now you got to do stand-up and ground fighting and this. And say, yeah, we do it. We do stand-up, we do weapons, we do mass attack, we do ground fighting, we do it all. Perfect, I want to train with you. I don't want you to train with me. As a matter of fact, I won't train you. Why? Because what you're looking for is you want to be a fighter. You want to compete. You want to get in the ring. You want to train. You have that purpose. You care about the win-loss record. You care about the fighting system. You care about the competition. You care about all that stuff. You want to be a fighter. Fine, but I don't want you. You see, we've got to separate the crowd because there are so many great fighters out there. I live in the city of Edmonton, Canada. It depends where you're watching this from. This is a fight city. We've had a long legacy of producing like amazing boxers, male and female. We have a long legacy now of producing some really world-class, tough fighters that have gone on to fight in the UFC and professional boxing and a lot of different things. We have that. We have a city full of amazing martial artists. That's great. That's there. And if you want that, you need to go there. But I am not all things to all people. But what there also is, there's people that were just like me. There's people out there that violence and aggression scares the hell out of you. Even if you've never experienced it on a dramatic scale. You are a father. You are a husband. You're a provider, but you also want to be a protector. And it scares the hell out of you. Like it did me. Going to train to be a martial artist is not going to get rid of that. That is the long way to happen. That happens for very few people. I know a ton of guys that are amazing world-class martial artists. I know guys that are professional fighters that when shit happens in the real and their families are there and shit happens for real, they are terrified. And there's some out there that wouldn't be. This is not about the fighter or not about the martial artist. This is about who we are and this is about who I am and this is about my message and this is about who you are. And this is early. We are finding our voice, but how do you know whether you should listen to this? How do you know if this is something in for you? Because it's the answer to the question that I've been trying to answer for myself for 25 years, and now I have crystal clarity. You see, I used to think because I am a functionalist. I actually care about the strategy. I've spent 25 years with the world's best combat educators. I mean, this is why we went with a system. My instructors were working with the SEAL teams, and not just the SEAL teams, like SEAL Team 6 is where this program started. Those guys needed to be functional. They need to have skill sets. They don't go out there and compete with the enemy. They needed something that gave them advantage, something that allowed them to cheat, something that allowed them to come out on top, because it's not about fighting and it's not about winning. It's not about fighting, it's not about winning, it's about surviving, it's about beating the person. So I'm a functionalist. I actually care about giving people the strategies, the physical strategies and tactics and tools to be able to defend themselves and their family. But here's the thing. I care less about that. I care more about ending the suffering. I care more about giving people the certainty and the confidence to not walk around like they can't be touched, to think that they're bulletproof, but to walk around when you know that you might face a situation that isn't winnable. At best, it'll be survivable. And to handle that every day, to walk out with that confidence and certainty. That's still what I want for myself every single day. I don't want to be a fighter. I don't need to put 100 wins in the win column. I don't need the belt. I don't need the title. I don't need to be famous. I don't need to walk in the room and look at everybody else that's my size or in my weight class and compare myself and ask whether or not I could beat them, whether or not I could tap them out or knock them out, or whether they'd get me. I don't care about that. I want to walk out with my family. I want to walk out with my friends. I want to walk out in this world and feel confident in who I am and feel certain that if somebody tried to take away, as I have it written on this wall, I don't know if it's inverted or not, but it says right to life, liberty, freedom, and security. That's what I care about. And I know there's a lot of you out there that care about that too. And that's what this podcast is about. That's who this message is for. That's what we are so passionate about, is ending and changing the effects of aggression and violence. So we have to separate the crowd. So I thought this was a great time to do it while we're early in this podcast. If you're listening to us and you're following us and you're a martial artist, this podcast is probably not for you. You might find some things out of it. You might find crossover and some parallel out of it. Hey, listen, I can sit back and I can appreciate and respect the arts. And like I said, a lot of my instructors and mentors, they're amazing martial artists. But when I get together and train with them, they train me differently. You know how many times they've said to me, say, listen, this is what everybody else is doing. This is what I want you to do. Why? Because all you care about is functionality. All you care about is getting the mind and the body ready for aggression and violence. And so if we're having me physically train something, yes, you could look back and say, well, that thing that you're training comes from an art. Yes, it does. But we are discarding the rest of the art. We don't care about the art. We care about the pieces of it. And it's not eclectic. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So if you're a martial artist, you're probably not going to enjoy this podcast. This is not who it's for. And if you're a fighter, again, I respect martial artists. Some of my best friends I respect fighters, but this is not for you. You won't find what you're looking for here. This will not better you. This will not help you get more wins in your win column. This is not the place where you help you get to the belt. And even though the psychology is sound and the physiology is there and all these different things, there's elements you might like and maybe you follow along, but this isn't for you. Who is this for then? Who's left? Anybody that is aware or that feels the suffering and the pain that's associated from aggression and bullying and tormenting. Anyone that is a provider and has people they care for, but also wants to be a protector. But you don't see yourself as a fighter. You don't see yourself as a martial artist. And you probably never will. And I want you to know that's okay, because I don't see myself as a martial artist and I don't see myself as a fighter. I was, and still within me today somewhere, is that small kid that has that fear. The fear of aggression, the fear of confrontation. But I have trained through that. I have figured out how to move. I figured out how to awaken a protector within me that allows me to be something different than what I was. And without it, I wouldn't be there. And that's who this is for. So listen, I thought it would be a great idea to separate our crowd early in this podcast. And if you're still listening to this and this resonates with you and understand it, I want you to know that you're not alone, because that was the thing I thought. I thought I was alone. And as many martial art gyms as I went into, remember, I've been around the world training. And you walk in, and I'll walk into a room, and I'll still walk into a room with 30, 40, 50 people, and 99% of them are martial artists, or 99% of them are fighters. I'm there for a different reason, but there's something there that I can pull out of it and bring back to our tribe. So if you're still listening and this is what you feel and this resonates with you, then this is a tribe that you're going to connect with. This is a tribe that is going to change your life. This is a tribe that is going to give you the results in your life that you've been looking for. Most people, when they find it, say, I've been looking for this my entire life. And that's the way that I felt. Okay, so listen, that's the concept of separating the crowd. I hope that resonates with you. I hope you continue to follow us. I hope that this finds our voice, my voice, our message finds the right ears and finds the right heart and finds the right soul and finds the right physical body. And you connect with us and you continue with us on this journey. And until next time, everybody, as always, please stay safe, stay ready. Want to awaken your protector within? If so, then head to awakentheprotectorwithin.ca and get your free Off the X training today.